Well, since you asked, Paul, yes, I did go golfing this morning.
How was it, Brad?
It was a little warm. I'm actually playing in a buddy's golf league tomorrow night, and so I need to reaffirm that I still know how to hit a ball, which I vaguely can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think today we've got a little bit of rain. I assume you had that yesterday, and the next, I don't know, 8, 10 days, something like that, or like 80 degrees plus every day. It's going to be warm.
Yep.
And I embrace our global warming overlords.
Yep, and we got Father's Day coming up, which I'm actually not golfing on Sunday because it's the U.S. Open, and we're going to be in theory, I should be able to just sit my butt on the couch and watch golf all day. I suspect that's not going to happen.
Let's be serious about Father's Day. What Father's Day really should be is Mother's Day 2, the quickening, because the only people that really make a freaking difference in our kids' lives, ultimately, is not us. You know?
Yep.
I feel like my chief role as a father is to embarrass my children.
It is, and to scare them. My daughter still has not learned that when I call her to come into the kitchen, I will be hiding around the corner to just scream at her. We are about... Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. She hasn't figured it out that this happens every time. But you know what? I'm going to embrace this until she does.
We have this long running gag where if anyone in my family, my daughter does this because she was a gymnast and a dancer, and she can like stretch over backwards like a piece of sponge or something. It's crazy how far back she can go. But anytime someone stretches like that, someone has to punch them in the stomach. It's just a Throt family tradition.
Physical abuse, always good and fun.
Yep. It's a more universal version of the game my son and I invented called Dick Punch. But anyway.
Wow.
Yep.
Well,
there are no winners.
If it keeps the Throts from breeding, I am all for it.
Yep. Anyway, my daughter did this morning. We were standing in the sunroom, and she kind of bent over backwards, whatever she does, and I motioned I don't actually hit her. I mean, I kind of, you motion to hit her, and my dog actually barked at me.
Wow.
Yep. And I'm like, that's okay. I see what's happening here. You've made your choice.
As is tradition, they bond to the women, and we men are left to fend for ourselves, which is why we don't get Father's Day to buy ourselves. Paul, you put out a particularly interesting tweet this morning, only because I said, no, there's no way that's true.
Okay.
Apparently the UI ribbon was last updated, about 10 years ago in Office?
It was longer than that.
That's not helping my situation.
I kind of forget these things, exact dates and whatever. I have very specific memories of Jensen Harris showing me the ribbon when it was in a very early state. And if you would ask me when that was, I would have said October 20, 2007. But actually, it was probably 2005. It might have been 2004, but it's probably 2005. So yeah, I mean, it's literally been like well over a decade, 13 years, whatever that is.
Yes, because when I started writing my piece up, I said the last major change to the Office interface was about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a little off.
This is how time is. It's like when you look at a kid you haven't seen in a while, and now they're a teenager, and you're like, what happened? I used to hold you in my arms, Yeah, I mean, I've written 3 articles. I've written 2 articles that I posted. I was just working on the 3rd one when you pinged me for the podcast. But the ribbon, the whole ribbon thing, the Office user interface thing has always been fascinating to me, because if you go back, I mean, today we would say, Office is a mature product line, word processing, spreadsheets, presentations, these are things that people understand. We know what the tools look like and work like. We're comfortable with them. There's no reason to change this. We were saying the same thing back in 2005, a long time ago, right? Back when Windows Vista was not yet a thing, and we were running everything on Windows XP. And it's funny. They landed on the wrong solution overall, except that the basics were right, which was, how do we overcome what was then called the command density problem with Office, where Office had menus and it had toolbars, and it was created in 1985 or something with the first version of Excel on the Mac, whatever that was. Back then, Excel probably had 27 commands or whatever the number was, or 127. By the time we got to 2005, it had thousands of commands, and so that user interface didn't scale, and how do we fix that?
Yep.
Also, command, it was not discoverable. If you as a user knew you wanted to do something, whatever it was, you would have to spend all this time going through menus looking for that thing. Kind of a hunt and peck method, which Microsoft reinvented for the start menu on Windows 10, by the way. That works great. Yeah, just look, hope for the best. So, the ribbon worked on one level, right? It did bring more commands up front and center. It made it more discoverable. They improved it over time to add things like the Tell Me functionality, which I think is particularly useful, where you can just type in something and it will show you exactly where it is in the ribbon. It's too big and bulky and unwieldy and complex looking. And when you think about how the competition has changed, back then Microsoft was worried about Corel WordPerfect. They were worried about Open Office or whatever it was called at the time, probably Star Office, really. Today they're worried about Google Docs, and if you look at Google Docs and you compare it to what they're doing, you'll see a user interface that's actually very similar all of a sudden, and it makes more sense, I think, today.
Yeah, and I can't personally verify this, but the guy put it on Twitter, and I assume that it's accurate. This guy named Sean Thomas Larkin, who works at Microsoft, he says all of Office 365 is now almost have been completely rewritten in a little-known scripting language called JavaScript.
You mean the web apps?
I don't know. He just says all of Office 365. He says this includes Skype, Microsoft Teams, Code, and the MS Edge bug debug, dev debug protocol.
Okay, I think he's referring to the web apps there.
It's gotta be.
And if you think about Office 365 and the multitude of new apps that they've added, especially on the commercial side, I would say almost exclusively on the commercial side, they're all web apps, right? Planner, Teams, all those things are web apps. Teams was architected from the beginning to be a PWA, and it will be a PWA soon. What he's saying suggests to me that Microsoft intends to make Word Online, Excel Online, et cetera, PWAs as well. And I think that's the right approach. And, I've always sort of thought, this is what could replace mainstream Office, are the web versions of these apps.
Yeah. Yep. I think we can all kind of see that coming, and it's not a big, especially something like Word. God, the only thing that's broken in Word is still pasting in an image. But other than that, I mean, it's relatively mundane. There's nothing too crazy complex. I could see Excel being a little bit more challenging, but they've already done it. They've already got it running in a browser. So
they did back when the Office mobile apps first came out, and I don't remember. Well, I guess you could say the first versions were in Windows Phone, right? They brought them to Windows, I don't know if it was Windows 8 something or Windows 10, I don't remember the exact timing. And of course, if you look at the Office mobile apps across iOS on iPad and iPhone or on Android phones and tablets, they're the same product, look and feel wise. I'm sure the underlying code may not be the same. I don't know how they make those things. It doesn't really matter, but the look and feel is identical across all of those things. And what you see in those applications is what I would call a tabbed toolbar. Microsoft calls it a simplified ribbon, but it's basically the old single line toolbar going across the top with no chance to double those up. It's just one toolbar. And then you get the tabs. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's simplified. It doesn't do as much for sure. If you're a power user of any of those products, you'll run into one thing in the mobile app that just doesn't work.
Right.
That's kind of tough. But if you're a normal user, I've always thought like those apps kind of solve the problem, And I think people like you or I or Mary Jo Foley, whoever, we could actually use Word Mobile, to get work
absolutely.
done. No doubt about it.
Wait, did you just say I'm a simple user, Paul?
No. In fact, what I was suggesting is that as professional writers, you would think that we're the type of people who would need some advanced functionality, and we don't. And that's something I've been dealing with for many, many years, and I've always wondered about this. That even back in the 90s, when Linux was coming around, and probably Star Office, whatever they called it at the time, I think it was a Sun product. All these things had to do, I thought, was provide that 10% that everybody needs and be free, and they would probably beat Microsoft. Now, that never happened, obviously. The issue, I think, is that we all have a different 10%.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of the deal. But anyway, I always thought that UI was good. And if you look at something like Microsoft's decision to stop making the desktop version of OneNote and use the mobile version instead, in Windows, they're calling it OneNote for Windows 10 today. That product has the simplified ribbon user interface. Now, the issue I have with that particular application is that the buttons, on each of the icons or whatever in the toolbar, too big. They look silly a little bit. They're not gross like some Windows Store apps or Microsoft Store apps, but if you put it next to a professional looking app, you can really see the difference. If you look at the pictures that Microsoft has supplied for this new, now as they're calling it, the simplified ribbon, the Office online apps and so forth, you can see that they've normalized the size of those things. And I think that's the only major difference between that new UI and what they did first in Office Mobile. And I think the deal there, they used this term in their announcement. They talked about making these things scalable.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, I would say, today with OneNote Mobile. It's not particularly scalable. I have a 4K display. The buttons all look like Weebles or something. They're humongous. And I don't quite understand why that is. It's the problem I have with Mail and Calendar and a lot of those apps. They just don't scale well. It looks like they figured it out.
Other things that don't scale well was when I came back from here, Paul. Stood on the scale and just went right to the gym. It's kind of hard to see here, but this was the view off what I would refer to the Throt side of the building, which is also known as the back, or also known as the ass side of the building.
Are you saying I'm an ass man? Oh, no, you're saying I'm an ass.
Yes.
I see.
And so
it looks like it's a drone shot.
We were 10 floors up. And so, I guess from that aspect it kind of is, but you can see there's just nothing. And then the beach is like way back here. And this is where we would walk every night. So
it's nice.
Yeah, it was nice. Unlike what I'm doing right now.
Sorry.
Other things that have come out, we got the Office 2019 previews coming to the Mac, and I know everyone's excited about that.
Woo-hoo. I tried to install that on Windows, and I granted it was kind of a half-hearted effort, but you actually have to go through some steps to make this work. You obviously need to have.
Step one is get a Mac.
No, I mean when it was on Windows first. I haven't tried it yet on the Mac. I assume part of the deal, I think you have to tell them your account. You can't just go get it. Like you have to actually be an Office 365 commercial customer. That's the first hurdle, But the other one is that I believe it involves some kind of you make a change to the admin console that makes it okay to install this thing on, if you can allow it on different PCs. I kind of was like, whatever. Like I just kind of gave up on it. But I'm curious about this stuff now because you won't see it in these releases, but I assume over time that right now they're kind of testing like this perpetual Office thing, but those applications on Office 365 should be getting this new UI.
Yeah.
Right. The simplified ribbon over time. They won't have it today, but they will over time.
Yep. Jumping back in the time machine yesterday with all of that Surface Pro goodness, Mary Jo Foley is reporting that it's going to be a pretty good redesign for Surface Pro 6, which, interesting.
Yeah, I don't quite understand what they could do to revolutionize a product that's, we just talked about this with Office. I mean, Microsoft surprised us in whatever year it was, 2005, whatever. But
yeah,
I joked on Twitter today that, maybe they'll make it into a circle. I don't know, quite understand, what they could do to it. But it occurred to me as I was joking about it that, one approach Microsoft could take would be to differentiate its Intel and Qualcomm products, because we all sort of assumed there'll be Qualcomm Surfaces, into Pro and non-Pro lines. Like the tablet is the obvious one. You could have a Surface Pro whatever, and then a Surface whatever, and the Surface with, and by whatever I mean like a name, like a number, Surface 4 or something, whatever they might call it. That could be the Qualcomm product, right? What used to be the Surface 3.
Interesting. Yeah,
it's an idea.
Maybe they'll make it Fluent and just partially transparent.
Speaking of which, did you see my little bit of trivia today about Fluent? When you read the Microsoft post about how they're rolling out this new UI across Office, it reminded me of how they're rolling out the Fluent design system on Windows 10, by which I mean in drips and drabs here and there. And then over time, after they get a lot of feedback from users and whatever, it's supposedly going to be everywhere or whatever. So it's a multi-year approach, just like the Fluent design system, which is interesting because the original name of the ribbon was the Fluent UI back in 2004, 2005, whatever time frame that was. Like that, they're kind of reusing this name, now for this design system. And as I recall it, I don't know if you remember this, before the ribbon, they had these command bars. And so like the default was there would be two command bars bumped up against each other. They were trying to make it smaller. But you could kind of drag them out and have the two toolbars. And that thing would sort of scale, depending on the width of your screen or whatever. And the original goal for the ribbon, as I recall, was something like that, where, well, it does that, right? It kind of expands out as you go. It's like, it's fluent. I think that was the point of it. It was what they were trying to say was, I don't know if we used this word for UIs at the time, but they were trying to say scalable, right? What I would say scalable now.
Interesting.
I think.
The only thing I could think of is that maybe they could build in a dock for the pen. I'm a simple person. Yeah.
It is a failing.
I wonder, because we've talked about how there's very low usage of the pen with that device, and I honestly wonder if it's like every time you want to go use the pen, you're just like, well, where is it? And if it was maybe really connected somehow with maybe some sort of loop.
Lenovo bundles this little plastic gadget thing I was going to show to you. It's kind of buried down there, but with its not really an IdeaPad, but it really is an IdeaPad. But it's the Lenovo Flex, the 14-inch version. And what it is it's a loop. It's a plastic loop for the pen, and it has a little tab on it, so you can plug it into the USB port. But the full-size USB port is only on the right side of the device, so you really don't have a choice about which side you can put it on. Which means that if there's a pen in the loop, you can't hit the power button because the pen blocks it. And it's like, guys, seriously. But there you go.
There you go.
It's a hard computer science problem.
It is
what I'm saying.
Well, that's more of a mechanical engineering problem, I guess, at this point. But one other thing, because Sony's motto with the PlayStation was for the gamers. They have royally screwed up Fortnite on their platform. Because, and I gotta be careful about these details. So the issue here is, so it's now out on the Switch. So you can play Fortnite on the Switch. You can play it on PS4. You can play it on Xbox. Switch players can play with Xbox players, and I think PC players too. If not, I know there's definitely cross-platform going on all over this place, except for Sony, because Sony's wanting to live on their own little island. And here's the fun thing. So if you have a Fortnite account and you log into it on a PS4, it is now, and then you log into it on your Switch, it locks your account because it says, hey, you can't play with the same account on your PlayStation 4 as on Switch. And so there are people, and this works the same way on other platforms too. And so the problem here is that people are having hundreds of hours in an account. They log in on one of the systems, and then it gets locked to the PlayStation platform only, and then they can't get into their account.
And they can't use it elsewhere. I don't understand why Sony has any fans. I really don't. And I kind of lashed out at people today on Twitter over this topic because I watched all three of the E3, the big E3. I also, the console makers presentations. I also watched Bethesda's thing, which was a ludicrous throwback machine of sequels. But anyway, I thought that Microsoft's presentation was way better than Sony's. And the things I did criticize Microsoft for, lots of games coming in 2019, lots of sequels, Sony's was even worse. So this is my opinion. Doesn't matter what you think about it, but I thought that Microsoft's E3 presentation, not for the first time, was better than Sony's. I heard from bunch of Sony fans who carted out this kind of old chestnut about, but not even but just as a retort, saying, but Sony has a way better exclusives lineup and blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, that has nothing to do with what I just said. I'm not talking about the body of work over 5 or 6 years. I'm talking about this week. They both had presentations. Microsoft's was better. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So
simple thing.
I found the Reddit thread, and here's the crux of it. It says, not just are they holding the accounts hostage, for example, I started playing on my roommate's PlayStation 4, then I tried to log in on the Switch, learning I can't use my account with all my unlocks and purchases because I played on a PS4, and they don't want me to use that account on anything other than a PS4, and so I can no longer use that account on my Switch.
So Minecraft is the first most famous example of this, Sony refusing the cross-play. There's another version. I can't think what game it is off the top of my head. It doesn't matter. The one thing I've said about Microsoft's strategy over the past couple of years that has been consistent is how gamer-focused it is. They've been dealt whatever cards they've been dealt. It can't deal with what has happened in the real world, whatever. But I feel like between all the things that they offer, like the Xbox Game Pass is a great example, backward compatibility is unbelievable. They're just so gamer-centric. It's just amazing, like head and shoulders above anyone else. Sony is antagonistic, and when you're in the dominant position as they are, to be that way makes even less sense. It's there is no chance of Microsoft beating them in this generation. They have
Right.
nothing to lose by enabling crossplay. In fact, it just makes their platform more viable by doing that. It makes no sense. And this kind of baloney competitive crap is just, it should be unacceptable to anyone who's a fan of games. Period. It's unacceptable. They suck.
And then here's another fun one that just kind of came across the wire. So this was posted by McAfee relating to Patch Tuesday. Basically, one of the patches was, or is, that if you have not applied it yet, if you're using the Ask Cortana above the lock screen,
Yeah.
they have a very simple method for retrieving data and resetting
Yeah.
accounts.
I might write about this one.
Yep. Fun,
It's
fun.
humorous. It's about time somebody used Cortana. I mean, I'm just happy it's being used.
I don't think that's what they were going for. But,
I know. It's too bad.
Here we are. Here we are. You got anything else for today, Paul?
No, I mean, I've got this third Office ribbon story that I'll post soon. Nothing major, I guess. All these hardware reviews. I just look at battery life tests I'm doing. It's just a freaking nightmare of hardware. How about you?
I got to go return one of my daughter's birthday gifts and order her another one because the one we bought was a piece of crap and we didn't realize it. We bought her a microscope, little slide things, whatever. And
Sure.
first off, she calls it an eye scoper. But the one we got is plastic and just not, I don't know, it was like $50. And for $50, I figured it'd be halfway decent. So now I'm going to spend $100 and hopefully get a decent one because she's interested in it. And so
Many years ago, we bought a rock tumbler for a friend who's kind of an artist. She likes to make her own jewelry, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, they were visiting us. We lived in different cities in Arizona at the time, so they were visiting for the weekend. So we put some rocks in it to run the thing, and it was the loudest noise you could imagine. It was like a ColecoVision printer, I guess a Coleco Atom printer. It was so loud. We actually had to put it out in the shed, and we could still hear it from in the house, from in the shed. So we just had to get rid of it. So this always comes up between us now. It's like the rock tumbler of whatever the thing is, like a gift that was made with the best possible intentions and was the crappiest gift imaginable. And my friend, the husband of the woman, was like, and he's like, you wanted me to bring this to my house? It's like, he's like, how much do you hate us?
Yep.
Have fun with the rock tumbler.
If anyone ever gets my kid a drum set, I'm going to return the favor with a rock tumbler.
I will point out, my daughter doesn't do this anymore. She got rid of the drums, but she had a drum set, and she plays a bunch of different instruments. But electronic drum kits have a headphone jack, and she can play the drums, hear them full blast, and you don't hear a thing. So
you don't have to murder your kid.
There is an
out.
Nice. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for today. We'll be right back here tomorrow, which is Thursday, for our First Ring Daily. Have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday and do whatever you're gonna do. I was actually just looking to see if you could still buy rock tumblers. I've got a few enemies in the neighborhood.
Nice. Yep. Your daughter seems like the artistic type. Have fun.
Yeah.
You just go home and listen for it.
Why is Dave standing in the street crying? I don't know.
The other joke about the rock tumbler was like, I think my friend Jeff said this. He goes, it takes a river like 1 million years to make a rock smooth. How long do you think this plastic piece of crap is going to take? He's like, what, are you kidding me? He's like, it's going to tumble the plastic and the device into something smooth, It's just the shittiest gift.
Right.
Oh, well.
I cannot reattach this remote. All right. See ya.
All right, I'll be around. Bye.